Well, scheming over a Senate seat, Nancy Pelosi's office now denying a report that claims her daughter is helping out ailing Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein in order to help Nancy Pelosi's buddy Adam Schiff win Di-Fi's Senate seat next year. The nearly 90-year-old Democrat senator has been facing intense pressure to resign amid a flurry of serious health problems that call into question her ability to serve. Pelosi's oldest daughter has been spotted pushing Feinstein around in a wheelchair around the Capitol. And Politico says it's not a coincidence. An unnamed Pelosi family confidant is quoted saying, if Di-Fi resigns right now, there's an enormous probability that Barbara Lee gets appointed. Thus, it makes it harder for Schiff. Team Pelosi swatting down the report with this very concise response, quote, no. But other Democrats think it's time for Feinstein to step aside.
But it's sad for anyone to see, and it's sad for her own colleagues to see. I'm hopeful that people who are close to her can talk to her and just say, look, end your service with dignity, step aside, let the governor appoint someone. But now it's just painful. It's painful to watch. And my hope is, I know there are people who are close to her. I don't think it should be forceful. I think they should have a loving conversation about it being time.
So, Jessica, I want to go to you first about this push that they're on to get Senator Feinstein out of her seat. It does seem like her health is in very serious condition. Yeah. But should it be her choice? And should it be the voters' choice as well in a primary?
Everybody should choose the same thing here. And whatever it takes to make Dianne Feinstein, I always mess it up, and I'm Jewish, understand the gravity of what's going on. Because at first we thought it was just shingles. Then we find out that it's also Ramsay-Hunt syndrome and encephalitis. Right. She's 89 years old. She's been through a lot. Her husband died a few years ago, which is an enormous change in her life. And I think that the people who are making the arguments about this, Democrats, are looking back at this incredible career, right? From being the mayor of San Francisco up to, the lead senator in California, and saying, don't go out like this. There is a better way. And then there's also the politics of it. So Ro Khanna, while I agree with what he's saying, he's an ally of Barbara Lee's. And we know that Gavin Newsom has said that he's going to appoint a black woman to that seat when it becomes available, if he has the chance. So that's going to be Barbara Lee. So it doesn't seem like the purest of intentions there. But Joe Biden, it's about federal judges. Joe Biden just confirmed his 129th federal judge. That's now tracking ahead of what Trump and Obama and George W. Bush had been able to do by this point in their presidency. And when you look at the makeup of the Supreme Court, you know how important then the federal bench is. And we can't, if she goes again, no one can vote in her place. That's how Lindsey Graham was able to make sure that they took that 2.5 months off. Right. So, Judge, they say that they're concerned about her dignity and leaving her career on a high note. I'm not sure that's true in California Democratic politics when all these people are fighting over the seat. But it seems like Nancy Pelosi is trying to pay back Adam Schiff for taking on President Trump, impeaching him twice, and taking on that role. And he wants the seat.
Yeah, Adam Schiff lied to the American people, a bold-faced lie. I have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump was a Putin ally and a Russian puppet. And this is all about I don't know that any state other than maybe New York is as politicized as California is. There's like this family dynamic with Feinstein and Pelosi and Newsom, who's aunt, that kind of thing. And it doesn't matter, honestly. You can call this is all words. You can say we want her to go out on a high note, low note. The woman has encephalitis, okay? That's an inflammation of the brain. She does not remember that she was in the hospital for 3 months. The press put it to her, and she says, no, I've been here voting. No, she wasn't in for 3 months. But, I just think, and I want to take a second to compare how the woman is like John Fetterman. They don't care. It's all about power. When Trump was walking down a ramp, and I think this was in June of 2020. He had just spoken, I believe, at West Point. And there was a slick metal ramp with no handles, no bars, no sidebars. And he was hesitantly descending down because he said it was slippery. He had new shoes on. And everybody says, emerging of him gingerly walking down a ramp, hesitantly descending down a ramp. There are questions as to whether or not he is capable. The man is healthy as hell and can't, but they turn it. No, let me finish. This woman is not healthy.
Yeah,
she
the media
is
would
not
have
healthy.
a harder push, I think.
Right, but they say that Joe
Republican.
Biden can't do it. He can't stand up. He gets lost in a crowd. He can't
There's
speak.
videos
Yeah,
of
he
him literally
trips.
getting
He
lost.
trips
Right, and
up
Donald
the
Trump
stairs.
tripped too.
He did not trip. Joe Biden trips up the stairs of Air
Lawrence,
Force
let's get back
One.
to the California Senate seat. What happens if Adam Schiff gets expelled from Congress?
Yeah.
Unlikely, but
Unlikely.
a resolution has been introduced to do that.
A girl can dream.
Well, yeah. I mean, that would be the right thing to do. I don't think we're going to get 5 Democrats to vote on that.
Unless they want him to be damaged from getting the Senate seat.
You know, Democrat politics can get very messy, especially when you have the Chicago crowd playing around with that. Let's see what Axelrod has to say about this. But the judge hit on something that should not be dismissed. It's the health and fitness of the Democrat candidates. And I'm so sick and tired of them pretending like we're the crazy ones when we can see what's happening here. Dianne Feinstein, 2 years ago, there was a report that came out that said that she was reintroducing herself to her own colleagues. 2 years ago. And she's been, you mean to tell me she knows the votes that she's been casted?
Yeah.
Where are all the people talking about democracy? We have people that are unelected that are telling the sitting senator from California how to vote. How's that democratic? It's not. You got Fetterman, the same thing. And now all of this stuff was discussed on the campaign trail, and it was dismissed. Then you got Joe Biden, and you can tell Biden, because, and you know, we talked about, oh, I'm not a doctor. You know, screw it, okay? Everybody sees what they see. He has good days, and he has bad days. And you know, that's how dementia patients work, and I don't know what he got. But I do know,
Well, don't say that's how dementia patients
I do
work.
know when he's having a good day because the White House wheels him out. All of a sudden, he's going to do a press conference. All of a sudden, he doesn't need his cue cards with the pictures of all the members of the press. He's having a good day.
No, he always needs that.
Well, the other day when he did that press conference, he didn't have it. He was on his,
I don't know
he was
what
on
he
his
got.
bag then.
I don't know.
I know what he got.
Yeah, listen, the reason why it looks like Democrats are having a problem with pushing elderly members out front is because they're the only ones that have any credibility to bring forward this crazy agenda they have. If you let AOC be the spokesperson for the Green New Deal, none of it ever passes because all the tricks in her bag focus on being radical and over the top and asking for way more than is reasonable, and that's the appeal to her, but that specific policy doesn't have appeal. But if you let 40 years, 50 years in service Uncle Joe bring it out in a piece of policy, if you let Nancy Pelosi put it through the House in a piece of policy, there's a certain amount of comfort and credibility that they believe comes with it with their voters that have a little bit of sanity left. As those people leave or die out, who's going to be left with credibility? That's one thing that Republicans have gotten right. And then we do bring in people that are new. I mean, Trump wasn't in office until he was president. Ron DeSantis was not a known commodity 6 years ago. And so they do have a problem with age, but it's more a problem with their crazy policies.
Anyone know how old Chuck Grassley is?
Yeah,
He's 90?
alert. But
He's the same age as Dianne
He's
Feinstein.
alert.
All right, we gotta go.
No,
Mitch,
he
also,
not a
Chuck
bad
Grassley
age.
also runs like 7 miles a day. Anyway.
Right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.